In our previous video, we talked about voters react to the GOP civil war, new anger, new alliances. We looked at how tensions inside the Republican Party were beginning to shape public opinion, not just among party insiders, but among everyday voters watching from the outside. And one group stood out more than any other: independent voters, the people who don't belong fully to either side, the voters who often decide elections in the United States. So today, we're asking a bigger question. Are independent voters starting to move? And if they are, what does that mean for Donald Trump, the GOP, and the political landscape ahead? Let's break it down. What if the most important voters in America are quietly changing direction? Not loudly, not dramatically, just moving. Are independents losing patience with political conflict? Are they searching for stability instead of confrontation? And could this shift reshape upcoming elections before most campaigns even realize what's happening? Tonight, we're diving into the warning signs, the numbers, the psychology, and the political consequences. Because when independents move, everything moves with them. American elections are often described as battles between two major parties, but that's only part of the story. The reality is that millions of voters don't strongly identify with either party. These independent voters tend to decide late, think pragmatically, and respond more to current events than long-term party loyalty. In close elections, that group becomes the tipping point. Campaign strategists know this, political leaders know this, and right now, there are growing signs that independents are paying closer attention to political instability, especially when parties appear divided internally. When voters see conflict, they start asking practical questions. Who is focused on governing? Who is focused on fighting? And who seems capable of leading in uncertain times? Those questions can quietly reshape the political map. Independent voters are watching several major developments unfold at once. First, internal debates within the Republican Party. Second, strategic responses from the Democratic Party. And third, the broader tone of national politics. Unlike highly partisan voters, independents often step back and look at the overall environment rather than a single event. When politics begins to feel chaotic, unpredictable, or overly combative, many independents start reconsidering their choices, not necessarily abandoning one side entirely, but reassessing. And reassessment is where political change begins. Picture a voter in a suburban district. 4 years ago, they voted Republican. 2 years ago, they split their ticket. Now they're unsure. They aren't glued to political commentary every night. But they notice patterns. Arguments between party leaders, strategic confusion, constant headlines about internal battles. And slowly, a question forms. Is this moving the country forward? That moment of hesitation is small, but millions of those moments across the country can change an election. For Trump and the Republican Party, the biggest challenge may not be policy disagreements. It may be perception. Trump's political style has always centered on confrontation, disruption, and direct challenges to opponents. That approach energizes supporters, but independents sometimes interpret the same behavior differently. Some see strength, others see instability. The difference between those two perceptions could determine whether independents lean toward the GOP or away from it. And perception spreads quickly through media, conversations, and local political environment. American political history is full of moments where independent voters suddenly shifted direction. Sometimes it happened weeks before an election, sometimes months, often triggered by a single narrative taking hold. A sense that one side looked more stable, more prepared, more focused. These shifts aren't always dramatic, but they are powerful, because independent voters are often concentrated in the exact states that decide national outcomes. When they move even slightly, the electoral map moves with them. Inside political campaigns, there's a constant fear, not loud opposition, but quiet drift. When loyal voters leave, it's obvious. But when independents slowly lose confidence, it can go unnoticed until it's too late. Polling can detect trends, but emotion is harder to measure. And right now, some analysts believe the biggest political battle isn't between parties, It's over how independent voters interpret the current moment. Is this a necessary political fight or unnecessary chaos? That framing could shape the next election cycle. Trump remains one of the most influential figures in modern American politics. His base is deeply committed. But winning elections often requires more than a base. It requires reaching voters who are skeptical, cautious, and still deciding. If independents begin associating political conflict with instability, that could create challenges for Republican candidates across the country. On the other hand, if Trump successfully frames the conflict as reform, as a fight against entrenched political interests, some independents may respond positively. The outcome isn't fixed, but the battle for perception is already underway. The most important political changes rarely happen in dramatic moments. They happen quietly. A voter changes their mind, a conversation shifts, a sense of confidence weakens or strengthens. Right now, independent voters appear to be watching closely, weighing leadership, stability, and direction. And whichever side earns their trust may gain a decisive advantage in the future. So here's the big question. Are independent voters truly moving, or is this just another moment of political noise? Do you think independents will ultimately support Trump and the Republican Party, or move toward a different direction? Let me know what you think. Your opinion matters, and I'd really like to hear your perspective. Drop your thoughts in the comments below.